depart for the location has been cancelled for today. Back to you.
We're also getting reactions from the spokespersons, but Harsha, we are going to stay with those visuals and also keep coming to you. This is the exact video of the collision that we are showing you, viewers, and this is an impact picture about what happened to the wing of the SpiceJet plane. There was a collision, like Harsha's telling us. They were taxiing at the Delhi airport. While taxiing, this happened. And as we're getting details, Harsha, I want to come back to you. A ground occurrence while taxiing at Delhi airport. We can clearly see there's damage to the right winglet and the left-hand horizontal stabilizer of the Akasa plane. The SpiceJet aircraft has been grounded. Harsha, the bigger, larger question, this is a major tarmac tragedy that's been averted. Why is this happening again? And this is at the Delhi airport. This is one of India's most prominent airports.
Yes, you rightly pointed out. There's one of the most prominent airports, but still, if you see the visuals, the situation doesn't seem to be very comfortable for both the pilots of the airline. However, what we understand from this situation is that pilots are not at much responsible for what has occurred today, because usually when they go towards taxiing, when they drive towards taxiing, and on the other hand, when one is given the command for arrival, at that particular time they only follow ATC command. The ATC keeps on telling them that how much you have to move forward, when you have to go towards this particular runway. After coming also, the command is given by the ATC with direction to move, which particular terminal has been allotted to the airlines. Sometimes it's T1, sometimes it's T2. So pilots majorly not to be held responsible, but majorly the fault of the ATC in this case, because ATC is the one person which manages, which commands, and which ensures that while taxiing, there's not another flight which is going to depart. When one is getting depart on the same or parallel runway, no other flight is coming on arrival. So this is majorly the lookout of the AI. And the more upsetting situation and the bizarre situation is that this is not a new incident. We have seen a month back the similar kind of incident between two aircraft of Air India and Indigo. They both were in the same situation. So clearly, there's an issue of the security, there's an issue of the AI, there's an issue of more responsible attitude in the command center of the ATC, which has to ensure that while departure and arrival, some stringent protocols are to be set in the command room, and there should be continuous monitoring of the command room as well. So in this case, there will be a proper investigation. The DGCA will be seeking proper investigation from both the airlines in SpiceJet and Akasa, exactly what happened. Why did there was a particular pilot who lost the control, or the taxiing was not done properly, how the entire incident happened. All will have to give their part of answers to the investigation, which has already begun. Back to you.
Harsha, the larger question, you said possibly not the pilots, but the ATC could be responsible. Is congestion that's there at one of the busiest airports, Delhi, responsible for this? This is a safety risk. It's not just a delay issue, Harsha.
It's not a delay issue. It's clearly the safety risk. And yes, there's an immense congestion at the Delhi airport, and that's the reason why each and every airline is asking for, immediate arrival timing and immediate allotting of the runway whenever they are deboarding or whenever they are departing. All the airlines are seeking immediate. They want ASAP the runway to land or to depart. It's a major problem because the time is the major. If you see the airlines like SpiceJet, Akasa, Indigo, they have only half an hour of buffet. They have a half an hour of only timeline for the next particular destination. Therefore, they want to immediately land, they want to immediately depart, and that's the major reason. ATC keeps on giving the runway, and there's one flight after another flight after the third flight. There's a huge queue of aircraft, while they're taxiing, and that's the major reason also why it sometimes gets out of control from the ATC hands as well.
Harsha, for just a minute, I'm going to cut across to the guests who are now joining us on the story to also really understand what happened. Captain Kabir Malik, aviation expert, is joining us on the phone line. Captain Malik, how serious is a wing-to-wing collision during taxiing? Are we underestimating this because it happened on ground?
See, we are not focusing on the service of the employees of this aviation industry. And we are not producing the quality, product for the operation. And actually, every day the story is now I think in past two years is going on. So today, what is it was happened? It is absolutely the negligence of the complete operation system. Those who were involved in this system, like ATC, ground ATC, even the airport staff also, and a belonging both of the aircraft, cockpit too also. We have to know before leaving from the they when they are approaching to the runway, they have to maintain the minimum distance. There is a instrument system also which they always told you to where is your the exact position on the runway or on the taxi way. So it is their ignorance, and it is very serious a part of sight in this aviation industry. 1% of negligence is the threat of 100 more than 100 of human beings like that, and we have to be very strict on kind of serious issues, and they have to find out what is the main reason of is happening also, and now in Delhi, and it was in Calcutta or the same kind of incident, very short time of period, but to happen in this industry. So when and how we will be serious in this matter, we have to be considered as on very separate.
Captain Malik, this is a video of the collision that we are showing. We're also showing the impact picture. This is at India's busiest airport. This has happened, but who is primarily responsible? Is it the ATC, the pilot, the ground control, or like I said, the airport traffic management?
See, we cannot say in the initial stage who will be responsible for this, but from my, my opinion, I am just blaming all of those who are in this operation, and they have to, even the cockpit crew also is very much involved in this. They ignored a small thing of maybe a fifth of from the, they put of the runway. They have to be noticed around by how much far the AC aircraft is taxing or about to. It was completely necessary, and we have to find out the exact reason why it was delayed by the ground ATC or by the ATC.
So I also wanted to understand, and I'm going to thank you, Captain Malik, for being with us. Also go back to Harsha to get a focus of what's really happened. This is the big story that we are breaking right now. There has been a tarmac collision. SpiceJet aircraft is grounded now at the IGI airport. And like Captain Malik was telling us, we really have to see what the ATC was also doing in this regard. We're showing you the pictures of the wing. We're showing you the pictures of the collision and what's really targeted here. This is another airport mishap as Akasa and SpiceJet planes have collided. This is at taxing time at the Delhi airport, the busiest airport. Captain Malik, the aviation expert, was with us. We're also going to get more experts, viewers. We're also going to try and go across to my colleague Harsha to get a sense of this wing-to-wing collision during taxing and how this really happened. This is a busy, chaotic Delhi airport. There's a tarmac collision, and Harsha is now with us. Harsha, the SpiceJet aircraft hit the Akasa aircraft. What could also be the reasons for this? Is there also not enough time being given between taxing of the two aircrafts? All right, this is a top focus that we stay with the Delhi airport scare as there is a collision. There's another tarmac tragedy that's been averted, but who is responsible? The big question. And we stay with this focus story after a short break where there has been a tarmac tragedy averted at one of India's busiest airports, the Delhi airport. On Republic Global today, a high-stakes diplomatic twist. A Pakistan delegation lands in Tehran carrying a message directly from the United States. Big questions, high stakes, global impact. Watch this at 6:30 p.m. on Our Global.
Our Pure Shahi Paneer Masala. Delicious, healthy, every day.
रानी, इस घर में कुछ है जो टूटता नहीं, ये पिलर कभी नहीं टूटेगा। रुंगटा स्टील टीएमटी से बना।
रुंगटा नहीं तो घर स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं। रुंगटा स्टील टीएमटी बार एकदम सॉलिड।
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
सैंडविच, लस्सी और छाछ।
हर घूंट में चमकी चाट। अब बताओ, स्वाद आया? आया।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
The Indian Air Force is giving its old MiG-29 fighter jets a powerful new weapon from Britain that turns them into modern fighters ready for today's battles. MiG-29s first came to India in the 1980s, have flown many missions along the tough borders with China and Pakistan. Now they are getting equipped with British ASRAAM missiles that make them as strong as NATO planes in close fights. The Ministry of Defense sent out a request for proposals to fit the Advanced Short-Range Air-to-Air Missile on the MiG-29 UPG version. This British missile from the company MBDA replaces the old Russian R-73 that pilots used for years. The R-73 could only reach targets 10 to 15 kilometers away, which forced pilots to fly too close to the enemy and take big risks.
Tonight on The Verdict, we put the spotlight on the delimitation debate. What has led to a divide between North and South? And why is it that Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has called out for a black flag stir?
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
आर प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो मिलाओ और खाओ
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला।
The Indian Air Force is giving its old MiG-29 fighter jets a powerful new weapon from Britain that turns them into modern fighters ready for today's battles. MiG-29s first came to India in the 1980s, have flown many missions along the tough borders with China and Pakistan. Now they are getting equipped with British ASRAAM missiles that make them as strong as NATO planes in close fights. The Ministry of Defense sent out a request for proposals to fit the Advanced Short-Range Air-to-Air Missile on the MiG-29 UPG version. This British missile from the company MBDA replaces the old Russian R-73 that pilots used for years. The R-73 could only reach targets 10 to 15 kilometers away, which forced pilots to fly too close to the enemy and take big risks. The ASRAAM changes all that. It can hit targets more than 25 kilometers.
On Republic Global today, a high-stakes diplomatic twist. A Pakistan delegation lands in Tehran carrying a message directly from the United States. Big questions, high stakes, global impact. Watch this at 6:30 p.m. on Our Global.
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
The airport mishap as Akasa SpiceJet planes collide. Wings of both planes collide while taxiing at the Delhi airport. Big Republic news break on the religious and sexual exploitation at TCS. Victims of grooming gang were to be trafficked to Malaysia. TCS sexual exploitation case reaches Supreme Court. A PIL in the Supreme Court seeking directions on forced religious conversion.
हम सब भाग्यवान हैं कि हमें ऐसे महत्वपूर्ण और देश की आधी आबादी को इस राष्ट्र निर्माण की नीति निर्धारण प्रक्रिया में हिस्सेदार बनाने का सौभाग्य मिल रहा है.
Brilliant move. We're on the cusp of history. Prime Minister Modi addresses the parliament, says with women's quota, India on the cusp of a historic move.
मैं आज बड़ी जिम्मेवारी के साथ इस सदन में इस पवित्र जगह से कहना चाहता हूं कि निर्णय प्रक्रिया किसी के साथ भी भेदभाव नहीं करेगी. ये निर्णय प्रक्रिया किसी के साथ अन्याय नहीं करेगी.
Prime Minister speaks on the delimitation bill, assures all southern states there will be no injustice against any state or region. And Anil Ambani's close aides have been produced in front of the Rose Avenue court in connection to the bank fraud case. Good evening, welcome to Republic. I'm Rhythm. Our top focus going to be, and we're going to track very closely, another tarmac tragedy that's been averted. Akasa Air spokesperson has now spoken. Akasa's aircraft operating flight QP1406 from Delhi to Hyderabad had to return to the bay on 16th April today. What we've come to know about the wing collision at the Delhi airport is the preliminary information Akasa spokesperson says indicates Akasa's aircraft was stationary when another airline, SpiceJet's aircraft, made contact with it. All passengers are safely disembarked. Our ground teams are looking into alternatives to fly our passengers to Hyderabad. In line with established protocols, the relevant authorities have been informed. At Akasa, safety is important. Now, let me actually go across to Harsha, who's joining us live on the story. Harsha, like I asked you, it's another airport mishap as the Akasa SpiceJet planes have collided. We have visuals of that, and the wings of both the planes collided while taxiing at the Delhi airport. Who's responsible, Harsha?
Yes. Rhythm, if we talk about who's responsible, it's the responsibility of the airline, it's the responsibility of the pilot, it's the responsibility of the Airport Authority of India, and majorly the ATC, the air traffic controller, who's majorly responsible. Imagine there's an aircraft who is standing there for the command from the ATC to, to depart, to go towards the runway and then depart for its destination to Hyderabad. And immediately there's another aircraft which has been given a heads up to go towards the taxiing. It has already landed. That was the SpiceJet Boeing aircraft B737-700, which landed at Delhi airport, and it was that time when Akasa was waiting for the command. The SpiceJet aircraft was moving towards taxi, and it collided with Akasa. It collided with the steady aircraft. It collided with the aircraft which was not moving, only waiting for the command of the ATC. So that's most surprising and bizarre statement which has come out from both the airlines, that this has happened to us and the passengers are safe. The passengers have been safely disembarked. But yes, the ATC is responsible, the DGC is responsible. That 1 month back there was a similar incident between Indigo and Air India, and it was stated that such incident will will have to be taken with the most serious responsibility by the ATC and by the Airport Authority of India. But from that time to till now, nothing majorly has been done with him. The safety has been rigged. debate, the passenger safety is completely compromised with both the aircraft hitting each other, colliding with each other and damaging each other's wings. The right hand wing of SpiceJet is damaged. The wings of the Akasa Air is damaged. Both the aircraft are right now at the bay. For God's sake, the passengers are safe. They were safely disembarked. But what if it could have been very major if SpiceJet's speed was not very low? If the speed would have been at the maximum speed at that time, something major untoward incident could have taken place with him, but it didn't happen. But this is something which can't be ignored, and that is the reason immediately rhythm investigation has begun in this entire incident. The DGCA DG has asked for a detailed report, not only from both the airlines but from the air traffic controller as well. And it has been asked that why this happened, what was ATC command center was doing, who was at the commanding chair, why this incident happened, who was there who didn't guide the pilot when the taxiing has to happen and when the other aircraft has to depart, and if both the runways were parallelly, why it was allotted to each aircraft. And these are the answers which will be given in the report to the DGCA by the airlines and by the ATC. But this is the most upsetting visuals and the incident which has come today from the Delhi airport, the airport which is maximum used by the passengers. The million passengers go every day, use the Delhi International Airport. It was an incident which happened between T1 and T2 airport. It was a runway which was between both the terminal where exactly this incident has happened. Back to you.
All right, thank you for giving us those details. We're also trying to understand what's happened, but we're also going to now, Harsha, go across to the other news coming in. We'll keep a track on the story. Now, viewers, it's a big breaking news. We've covered it earlier. We're telling you here, the Rose Avenue court has now remanded close aides of Anil Ambani, Amitabh Jhunjhunwala and Amit Bapna to a 5-day police custody. These are big words that are coming in now. The Rose Avenue court remands Amitabh Jhunjhunwala and Amit Bapna to 5 days of police custody. Let me also tell our viewers the report, the ED documents clearly show and state that the arrest was imminent and needed because of fund diversion and money laundering. I want to try and go across to my colleague, Deputy News Editor Shavan Sen, joining us on the story. Shavan, this is a big setback. The Reliance Anil Ambani Group has been under the scanner with the Enforcement Directorate. Also, before I go across to Shavan, I want to tell our viewers the big news. The Supreme Court has dismissed Anil Ambani's petition that was filed before them for the fraud classification by the banks to not be seen. I'm going to explain this to our viewers so that one can understand what really the Supreme Court is talking about. And I also want to take our viewers through the key hearing that happened in the top court today, where the Supreme Court was hearing Anil Ambani's order against the Bombay High Court. Now, the Bombay High Court order had lifted interim protection to Anil Ambani in the fraud classification case. Now, viewers, let me tell you what happened in the Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court refused to restore the stay on the fraud classification against Anil Ambani. This was something that Anil Ambani had moved against because there's a Bombay High Court order. He wanted interim protection to the Anil Ambani fraud classification case. 3 senior advocates appeared for him: Kapil Sibal, Narendra Hooda, and also Shyam Devan. Kapil Sibal said, and he spoke a technical issue on this where he said only an auditor can determine whether there has been siphoning or not. Viewers, please listen carefully as I tell you what the Chief Justice of India said. He said, hard-earned money has been siphoned. Did you make good losses of banks and the financial institutions? To which Anil Ambani's lawyer, Kapil Sibal, replied, we are stuck there. What do? We have no representation. The Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta, one of the top law officers, appeared for the consortium of banks and said this public auditor who was appointed by the banks is internationally acclaimed. We also saw senior advocate Shyam Devan trying to say words for Anil Devan and for Anil Ambani, I beg your pardon. And the Chief Justice says, who knows better than banks on who can be a financial audit? The Supreme Court then was told, and the Solicitor General said a personal hearing had been given. So the consortium of banks that has moved against the Anil Ambani Reliance Group has clearly said that we tried everything to ensure that everything possibly was done. A very important point came when Kapil Sibal said, I wanted to be recorded with the banks and settle please record the settlement request. The Solicitor General, appearing for the bank, said it will be used. I know where it will lead. Please do not record the settlement. The Supreme Court finally dismissed Anil Ambani's plea to stay fraud classification. This is coming simultaneously as he's fighting battles with the ED, the CBI, and I want to go across to my colleague Shavan. Shavan, the Rose Avenue Court has said key close aides of the Anil Ambani group, Amitabh Jhunjhunwala, Amit Bapna, are in 5-day police custody. What is the case the ED made out against them?
Well, in fact, this is a PMLA case that has been registered by the Enforcement Directorate, in which they were basically looking at funds that were allegedly received by Reliance Home Finance Limited and Reliance Commercial Finance Limited. Now, this was what they are essentially alleging right now is that through several shell paper companies that were basically operated and controlled by Reliance Anil Ambani Group, now under the pretext of corporate loans by cheating banks as well as shareholders and investors and other public institutions. Now, the allegation here that has been leveled is that they have essentially diverted the funds. And this was basically being done under instructions that have come in from the board of directors. As far as Amitabh Jhunjhunwala is concerned, in fact, as per the Enforcement Directorate in the grounds of arrest, they've essentially indicated that he was the director of Reliance Capital Limited and he was holding the company of RHFL and RCFL that was between 2003 in March to September 2019. And as far as the other company is concerned, he was also the chairman there between March 2006 to September 2019, which effectively meant that he was in charge of the companies, and it was during this particular period when the companies allegedly received funds, and these were the same very funds that were basically diverted to shell companies or rather paper companies.
I want to go across to our colleague Shambhi joining us from the Rose Avenue Court. Shambhi, what happened today when this 5-day remand has been given to key Anil Ambani aides, Amitabh Jhunjhunwala and also others?
Well, yesterday, and they've been given 15 minutes in the morning to meet their relatives, to meet their family. All the medical prescriptions and everything will be taken care of as per the court. And there was also one request made by Amitabh Jhunjhunwala and Amit Bapna, that was request for homemade food, which has been declined by the court. So these are the 3-4 main points on which the court has given a decision. And we know that Amitabh Jhunjhunwala and Amit Bapna, they are one of the very long trusted aide in senior executive in the Anil Ambani Group. And they have handled major financial operations and key transactions of the group companies. And the court has definitely seen some merit to the case of ED and has both of them to 5 days of police custody.
All right, thank you for those details. Now, viewers, I just want to tell you more significance of this that has happened. The Supreme Court dismisses Anil Ambani's plea to stay the fraud classification of loan accounts. It's a setback to Anil Ambani. At the same time, his aides are arrested. The ED arrests Amitabh Jhunjhunwala and Amit Bapna. We went through Shavan, who gave us the details about what really has happened. And in the Supreme Court, there were clearly, I would say today, great questions that were being raised and observations being made also by the Supreme Court, who said right now in their order that we want to go ahead and dismiss this particular plea that has been filed by Anil Ambani. Senior advocate for Anil Ambani, Kapil Sibal, argued interim relief cannot be reversed in such a fashion. The fraud civil classification will amount to a virtual civil death. Kapil Sibal says for Anil Ambani, I have been called a fraud. This is a virtual civil death. Nobody will lend money to me, Sibal said. The Chief Justice pointed out investigations are also on by the CBI and the ED, and they were proceeding against Anil Ambani over the alleged siphoning of funds. Sibal said criminal investigation can go on parallel, but the fraud classification must be interfered with. However, the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, was not persuaded to interfere. It said this is a case of siphoning off. We can't really express any opinion. We don't want to prejudice. It's the hard-earned money of thousands of crores of taxpayers' hard-earned money allegedly has been siphoned. Has this loss been made quit? Has this loss been made good? The Chief Justice asked. You cannot have a person who is a forensic service provider who's not an auditor, is what was said. This was Sibal's argument. However, the Solicitor General appearing for the consortium of banks asserted it was a reputed auditor. Finally, the Supreme Court dismisses this petition and the finding of diversion of funds. The Supreme Court also heard hearings and also heard arguments by Narendra Hooda, who appeared for Anil Ambani. But I want to tell our viewers that the Solicitor General also said this is an internationally acclaimed auditor. Now, the most important part of the hearing, if you ask us viewers, is when the Supreme Court questioned how can we substitute the wisdom of the bank, it's their money. Solicitor General saying that even personal hearing was given. The most important part when Kapil Sibal said, I want to make a settlement, record my settlement. This is the very key important to understand where Anil Ambani is going. His groups, he possibly, we don't know, want to make a settlement with the banks. But the Solicitor General said, do not record this settlement. The Supreme Court finally dismissed Anil Ambani's plea to stay the fraud classification of loan accounts. I'm also joined online by my colleague Sarthak. Sarthak, in the Rose Avenue Court, we've seen his key aides being arrested. Key aides of the Anil Ambani group have now been arrested. In fact, Amitabh Jhunjhunwala has been known to the Reliance Anil Ambani group, I think from 2006. I was going through the ED documents. What are you picking up? What happened in the court today? 5 days police custody has been given.
In the Anil Ambani group has intensified and the ED has intensified the entire probe into the Anil Ambani case with these two individuals, Amitabh Jhunjhunwala and Amit Bapna, who has been taken into custody by ED and in this money laundering case. And now ED has taken 5 days of custody from the Rouse Avenue Court. That's the latest that
the Rouse Avenue Court. That's the latest that we are developing today. The Rouse Avenue Court, after the arguments that were placed on record in the court has granted 5 days of police custody to ED to investigate the matter further. Let me remind the viewers, this is the same case against which ED is investigating the Reliance Communications and other Reliance entities that belong to Anil Ambani. The total loan fraud that has been taken into record by ED amounts to nearly 40,000 crores. ED is investigating the matter. A few days ago, Anil Ambani was also summoned. He was questioned for 10 long hours. Certain details were extracted from Anil Ambani. He was summoned the next day as well, but it came out that Anil Ambani was not present at the ED office the next day. CBI has also filed multiple FIRs against Anil Ambani. And now these two individuals have been taken into custody by ED. They are a close companions, close associates of Anil Ambani and the Reliance Communication Group. And the 5 days of police custody has been granted to them.
All right, Sarthak,
so
that's very important to understand what you're saying. I want to thank you. We'll continue recording and looking at the story very closely, where these key aides have also been now arrested. Viewers, the other top focus, Prime Minister declares North, South, East, West. Nobody is going to be left behind. Prime Minister assures the southern states there will be no injustice to any state, no injustice to any region. He assures there will be no injustice. He said, this is my guarantee, this is my promise, there will be no injustice. Take a look.
मैं आज बड़ी जिम्मेवारी के साथ इस सदन में इस पवित्र जगह से कहना चाहता हूं, चाहे दक्षिण हो, उत्तर हो, पूर्व हो, पश्चिम हो, छोटे राज्य हो, बड़े राज्य हो, मैं आज एक जिम्मेवारी से कहना चाहता हूं कि निर्णय प्रक्रिया किसी के साथ भी भेदभाव नहीं करेगी। ये निर्णय प्रक्रिया किसी के साथ अन्याय नहीं करेगी। भूतकाल में जो सरकारें रही और जिनके कालखंड में जो परिसीमन हुआ और जो अनुपात उस समय से चला आ रहा है, उस अनुपात में भी कोई बदलाव नहीं होगा और वृद्धि भी उसी अनुपात में होगी। चाहिए तो मैं गारंटी शब्द उपयोग करता हूं। वादा की बात करते हो तो मैं वादा शब्द उपयोग करता हूं।
Viewers, the top focus story that we're also tracking, the victims who were almost in the grooming men gang case were converted by these people, were going to be trafficked in Malaysia. The process of making the passports was also initiated in Nasik. Imran, they say, one of these accused used to talk via video conferencing and all the accused would address him as Imran. Hence, the person who would talk over video conference is known to the victims as Imran, the Malaysian preacher. Let me go across to Revati, who's joining us live on the story. Revati, very, very shocking details coming out. Victims were being trafficked. Republic is breaking the TCS grooming gang details. Tell us more.
Right, as you rightly mentioned, there are international links to this particular matter. Also there was a grooming gang which was currently, as you can see, that the two accused which were brought to the court right now are being taken back to the jail again. Today they were presented before the Nashik court, and in a fresh new case. We'll just इसमें इमरान कौन है? इसमें इमरान कौन है? चलो कुछ कहना चाहेंगे? मारपीट का आरोप हुआ है, कुछ कहना चाहेंगे आप? इसमें इमरान कौन है? कब से ये सब चल रहा है? इंटरनेशनल लिंक इसमें है क्या? और कितने विक्टिम्स हैं इसमें? और इसमें कितने विक्टिम्स हैं?
ये मलेशिया में किससे बात करते थे आप लोग?
किससे बात? इमरान कौन है?
इमरान कौन है तुमने? मलेशिया में किससे बात करते थे? चलो।
As you can see, the two accused which were presented before the Nashik court today are being taken to the police custody. You can see the live visuals from Nashik court. They were presented before the...
And I want you to ask more questions to them. Only Revati there as the journalist asking questions. I'm letting her catch her breath. Revati, if you can also ask more direct questions that you were about the international hand. And you were also asking what's the deal, who is Imran? Fantastic reporting there by Revati, who's been asking direct questions here. Revati, if I can come back to you, if you can ask more questions. The big news now, the Nasik accused assaulted are now inside prison. The grooming men gang people were trafficking these girls to Malaysia. They were in the process of making some passports. If I can go back to Revati, who was there asking questions. Revati, if you can hear me, go ahead.
Right. As you rightly mentioned, as you can see, these two accused in the case, Raza Menon and Shafi Sheikh, were brought to the court today in a fresh new fourth case. And it is said that more 3 fresh cases will be lodged in this particular matter. As we see, Republic confronted the accused that how many victims are there in this particular matter, but no response was sought. Also, we asked them that ye Imran kaun hai? As we can see that they are being taken currently to the Nashik Road jail. They will be investigated further in the matter because it is expected that there are more victims coming up. Also, the international link will be there, is what being said by the investigation agencies. SIT is also investigating the matter where one of the victims was raped, gang raped actually. Evidences from there has been collected, and also they are being currently scrutinized by the SIT. Also, these documents are submitted to the international investigation. I apologize that these documents are also being sent to the national investigation agencies which have set a probe. Also, this matter has been taken to the Supreme Court. Over to you.
Absolutely fantastic. Viewers, I want to go back to that sequence that only Republic TV has as an exclusive when she confronted the people, and also the TCS grooming gang accused we're now being told were beaten up by inmates in the prison. Remember, viewers, the police have registered 9 cases of attempts to religious conversion and sexual harassment at the local branch of the TCS firm in Nasik. The investigation suggests there were 7 male accused operating like an organized gang. TCS sexual abuse accused, we are now being told, had also reached the court. Some of them beaten by inmates in the prison. If I can go back to Revati for a confirmation of the big Republic details. And Revati, they were being trafficked to Malaysia. The gang accused have been beaten up, we are told. They've also been taken to the court. The accused tells the court he was attacked.
Right, actually before bringing them into the court, they were in the judicial court and also they were in judicial custody, and they were beaten by the inmates, especially one of the victim was beaten by the inmates is what the update is coming up. Shafi Sheikh is the accused who was being beaten by his inmates in the Nashik Road jail. And also the most important thing is that there is a Malaysian preacher link which is now coming up in this particular matter. Republic has been constantly saying this, putting this forward, that there is an international link to this particular matter. And today 2 of the accused were brought to the Nashik court today. Now, as we can see, this is the accused's family.
ये मीडिया नहीं है ना, तो ये मैटर को इतना ना तो उछाल दिया, यही धक्का मुक्की, ये टैग लगा के वो टैग लगा। अरे सत्यता जाननी है ना, तो वकील है, उनके वकील है, उनको पूछो आप। अरे कितना इसको कितना उछालेंगे मैटर। दूसरे सारे प्रकरण, नासिक में माड़ा का घोटाला हुआ, नासिक में भ्रष्टाचार हो रहा है, वृक्ष तोड़ी हो रही है, पर्यावरणवाद से खेला जा रहा है। इतने सारे मुद्दे सब छोड़ दिए गए और एक इसको हाईलाइट बना के छोटी सी बात का बतंगड़ बना के करा तेरंडे गुंजाल बाबा। उसके बाद महिला झूठ बोल रही है, एक ही लेडीज की कंप्लेंट है, ये प्रेम प्रकरण है, ये कोई बहुत बड़ा स्कैंडल नहीं है। 12 पीड़िता कोई भी नहीं है, सब झूठी केसेस करवाई है, इसलिए कॉपी पेस्ट आ रहा है सब। हाँ, तो सबूत है तो उसका FIR कॉपी लो, पुलिस से मांगो, FIR कॉपी पे बात करो, FIR कॉपी पे बात करो। झूठ कितना, झूठ को दबा रहे हो, हाँ, झूठ को दबा रहे हो आप। अरे झूठ को दबा रहे हो क्या आप, झूठ को दबा रहे हो क्या आप। जो इतने, मैं कह रहा हूँ, इतने झूठ जो हुए उसको दबाने के लिए ये मैटर को उछाल रहे क्या। इसके पहले जो मैटर हुए वो सारे झूठ है और यही मैटर सच है। हाँ, बाकी के सब मैटर तड़प दिए। नासिक शहर बहुत शांत शहर है, बहुत शांत शहर है। यहाँ पर हिंदू मुस्लिम बहुत अच्छे से रहते हैं, मगर यहाँ पर है ना जहर घोलने का काम किया जा रहा है। हिंदुत्ववादी संघटना कोई धर्मांतर का आरोप नहीं है, काहीच नाही, खोटं आहे, धर्मांतर नाही आहे। तुम्हाला सांगू राहिलो, धर्मांतर हे काहीच नाही, हे खोटं आहे, लव प्रेम प्रकरण येते। कोणी धर्मांतर नेते आणि कोणी मटण खाऊ घालायला लावलं काहीच नाहीये। डे 2 पासून या मॅटर मध्ये येतं, मी बघतोय सर्व।
As we can see that one of the accused's family member is stating that this is just because they want to create a rift between Hindu and Muslim, and all these accusations are fake, and he has claimed that one of the FIRs is only true and others are not true. He is just saying that Nashik mein Hindu Muslim अच्छे से रहते हैं is what he is claiming at the moment right now, and he is saying it is just a plan to create a communal rift. Over to you. इसमें इमरान कौन है? इसमें इमरान कौन है?
मारपीट का आरोप हुआ है, कुछ कहना चाहेंगे आप?
इसमें इमरान कौन है? कब से ये सब चल रहा है? इंटरनेशनल लिंक इसमें है क्या? और कितने विक्टिम्स है इसमें? और इसमें कितने विक्टिम्स है?
ये मलेशिया में किससे बात करते थे आप लोग?
किससे बात? इमरान कौन है? इमरान कौन है?
इमरान कौन है तुमने? मलेशिया में किससे बात करते थे? चलो 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 चलो.
As you can see, the two accused which were presented before the Nashik court today are being taken to the police custody. इसमें इमरान कौन है? इसमें इमरान कौन है?
चलो चलो. चलो रोज
पोलीस आहे ना.
गोंधळ नका करू रे. थांबा 2 मिनिट. माइक खाली कर. माइक नीचे करो. करो नीचे. कोई दिख नहीं रहा है तो आप लोग ऐसा फोन पकड़ेंगे. घर खाली. थोड़ा पीछे आओ. पीछे हो जाओ. पीछे हो जाओ. तुम थोड़ा पीछे हो जाओ. पीछे हो जाओ. और पीछे. बस पीछे हो जाओ. सर 1 मिनिट
बघा.
जो केस हुआ है इसके बारे में बताइए कि वजह क्या है? काही धर्मांतराचे आरोप केले जातात, वेगवेगळ्या प्रकारचे आरोप केले जातात. यात किती तथ्य आहे आणि पूर्ण मागणी काय मत आहे?
बघा, सर्वात पहिले तर आहे ना, ही केस जी झाली ना, याच्यातले मूळ जो आरोपी आहे ना दानिश, 1 मिनिट थांबा रे. याच्यातला जो मूळ आरोपी आहे ना दानिश, त्याच्यावरती येतं हे इलिगेशन्स होते. तो आरोपी आहे काय आहे, तो येतं महिनाभरापासून आहे ना, तो सेंट्रल जेलला आहे. त्याच्यासोबत अजून एक आहे, ते दोन्ही लोक सेंट्रलला आहे. हे मॅटर आहे आजच का 12-15 दिवसापूर्वीच का उजागर झालं. हे कुठंतरी आहे ना, तर हे नाशिक शहरातले वृक्षतोडी असतील, त्याच्यानंतर येतं माळाचं प्रकरण असेल, हे टेंडरच्या घोटाळ्यांचे हे असेल, खरात बाबा असेल, श्रीरामपूरला गुंजाळ बाबा त्यांनी जे रेप केस हे झालं, याच्यात काय होत होतं, सर्व येतं हिंदू समाजाचे कपडे येऊ राहिले आणि कुठंतरी येतं स्क्रिप्ट लिहून चालवायचं काम चालू होतं. मला सांगा, जेव्हा येतं ते 2 आरोपी जे मुख्य आरोपी आहे, तुम्ही धर्मांतर हे ते जे म्हणताय ते लोक सेंट्रल जेलला आहे. त्याच्यानंतर येतं वराती मागून घोड्या आणायचे, त्या घोड्यांना नटवायचं तटवायचं आणि काहीतरी येतं बातम्या करून पुढं हे करायचं. एकाच पोलीस स्टेशनला पोलिसांना FIR घ्यायला जर आपण गेलो, FIR घ्यायला तर म्हणता बघा काय काही नाही करून घ्या, कशाला आम्हाला काम वाढवतं. आणि 8-8, 9-9 FIR एकाच केसमध्ये 8-8, 9-9 FIR येत आहे. इतका आमच्या नाशिक शहराच्या पोलिसांकडं इतका टाईम लागून गेला. काय आहे, मुस्लिम समाज आहे ना, कधीच आहे ना तर कोणाला आहे ना तर जातीवादाच्या आणि याच्या त्याच्या नजरेने बघत. ऐकून घ्या सर्व सांगतो, ऐका. टाळी एका हाताने नाही वाजत भाऊ. आणि जे पीडित महिला आहे ना, तिने कंप्लेंट कोणाच्या विरोधात केलेली आहे आणि त्याच्यानंतर सर्व टार्गेट केलेलं आहे. सर्व टार्गेट केलं. मी हे म्हणतच नाही आहे का तो मुलगा चांगला आहे, जो गुन्हेगार आहे त्याला शिक्षा व्हायलीच पाहिजे.
कौन है इसमें? इमरान कौन है?
चलो चलो. कुछ कहना चाहेंगे? मारपीट का आरोप हुआ है, कुछ कहना चाहेंगे आप?
इसमें इमरान कौन है? कब से ये सब चल रहा है? इंटरनेशनल लिंक इसमें है क्या? और कितने विक्टिम्स है इसमें? और इसमें कितने विक्टिम्स है?
ये मलेशिया में किससे बात करते थे आप लोग?
किससे बात? इमरान कौन है? इमरान कौन है?
इमरान कौन है तुमने? मलेशिया में किससे बात करते थे? चलो 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 चलो.
As you can see, the two accused which were presented before the Nashik court today are being taken to the पुलिस कस्टडी. इसमें इमरान कौन है? इसमें इमरान कौन है?
चलो चलो कुछ कहना चाहेंगे? मारपीट का आरोप हुआ है, कुछ कहना चाहेंगे आप?
इसमें इमरान कौन है? कब से ये सब चल रहा है? इंटरनेशनल लिंक इसमें है क्या?
That this new Iranian regime choose wisely, which is where we'll start with a message to Iran's military leadership, to the Cage leadership and IRGC leadership. We're watching you. Our capabilities are not the same, our military and yours. Remember, this is not a fair fight. And we know what military assets you are moving and where you are moving them to. While you are digging out, which is exactly what you're doing, digging out of bombed out and devastated facilities, we are only getting stronger. You are digging out your remaining launchers and missiles with no ability to replace them. You have no defense industry, no ability to replenish your offensive or defensive capabilities. You only have what you have. You know that, and we know that. You can move things around, but you can't actually rebuild. You can dig out for now, but you can't reconstitute. But we can. We are reloading with more power than ever before, and better intelligence, even more importantly, better intelligence than ever before, as you expose yourself with your movement to our watchful eye. We are locked and loaded on your critical dual-use infrastructure, on your remaining power generation, and on your energy industry. We'd rather not have to do it, but we're ready to go at the command of our president and at the push of a button. This blockade, which the chairman will detail this morning, is the polite way that this can go. Your energy is not moving and will not move, and we can do this all day. But it's not destroyed yet. Your energy industry is not destroyed yet. You like to say publicly, Iran, that you control the Strait of Hormuz, but you don't have a navy or real domain awareness. You can't control anything. To be clear, threatening to shoot missiles and drones at ships, commercial ships that are lawfully transiting international waters, that is not control. That's piracy. That's terrorism. The United States Navy controls the traffic going in and out of the strait because we have real assets and real capabilities. And we're doing this blockade, performing it with less than 10% of America's naval power. The math is clear. We're using 10% of the world's most powerful navy, and you have 0% of your navy. That's real control, and we have a long track record of dealing with pirates and terrorists. But there is an alternative. As our negotiators have said, you, Iran, can choose a prosperous future, a golden bridge, and we hope that you do for the people of Iran. In the meantime, and for as long as it takes, we will maintain this blockade, successful blockade. But if Iran chooses
All right, that's the big news coming in from the U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth.
And so did you, as the U.S. military moved seamlessly from major combat operations to a world-class blockade. We can make that transition again, very quickly and even more powerfully than ever. At the direction of President Trump, the War Department will ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. Never. We'd prefer to do it the nice way, through a deal led by our great vice president and negotiating team, or we can do it the hard way. We urge this new regime to choose wisely. Speaking of choosing wisely, a note to the press corps, to the American media. As I just can't help but notice the endless stream of garbage, the relentlessly negative coverage, you cannot resist peddling. Despite the historic and important success of this effort and the success of our troops. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what side some of you are actually on. It's incredibly unpatriotic. This same press corps, not this exact same press corps, but at least an older press corps, bent over backwards during the Biden administration to explain away, you explained away, the disastrous and disgraceful Afghanistan withdrawal. You called it the greatest airlift in American history. It's almost like you're cheering only for one side. This past Sunday, I was in church with my family, and our minister preached from the book of Mark, the 3rd chapter. And in the passage, Jesus entered a synagogue and healed a man with a withered hand. The Pharisees came to watch. And as the scripture reads, they came to see whether Jesus, would heal him, or he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. You see, the Pharisees, the so-called and self-appointed elites of their time, they were there to witness, to write everything down, to report. But their hearts were hardened. Even though the Pharisees went out and immediately held counsel against him, how to destroy him. I sat there in church and I thought, our press are just like these Pharisees. Not all of you, but the legacy Trump-hating press. Your politically motivated animus for President Trump nearly completely blinds you from the brilliance of our American warriors. The Pharisees scrutinized every good act in order to find a violation, only looking for the negative. The hardened hearts of our press are calibrated only to impugn. I would ask you to open your eyes to the goodness, the historic success of our troops, the courage of this president, and this historic moment for a deal that could end the Iranian nuclear threat. The incredible battlefield victory laid before your eyes. The not one, but two incredible rescue missions, miracles, you might say, or a locked-in blockade. Or how about historic recruiting numbers? Yesterday, we announced that the Air Force and the Space Force met new higher goals in FY26, 5 months in advance of the end of the fiscal year, five months ahead of time. The Marine Corps and the Army will soon do the same. 2-3 years ago, we couldn't meet lower recruiting numbers, not even close. Where are the reports on that? Where's the coverage of the new spirit in the country, the new spirit in the ranks, the surge of Americans wanting to join the greatest military in the world? Nothing from the fake news. We sense a pattern. You see, on the battlefield, these are demonstrations of uniquely American capabilities, strength and resolve. It's all around you each and every day. But in the press, you only seek the negative, earning each and every day the fake news label. But the American people, with goodness in their hearts, see past the Pharisees in our press. They see the goodness. You watching, you see the goodness. They see the success. They see the reality. And they don't demand perfection, and perfection is not possible on any battlefield. But they see the incredible feats that our troops accomplish every single day. So to those troops, stay focused, block out the noise, stay aggressive. You are showing the world what it means to be an American warrior. You are making this building and the American people proud. We pray for you every day, and we have your back in every way. And to Iran, choose wisely. I pray you choose a deal which is within your grasp for the betterment of your people.
के नेतृत्व में सदन पटल पर पहली बार पेश किया मगर उस समय ये प्रावधान पारित नहीं हो पाया। आज आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री महोदय जी ने भी इसका जिक्र किया, लेकिन हमेशा की तरह उन्होंने आधी बात बोल दी। उन्होंने कहा, सदन को ये बताया कि विरोध करने वाले कौन थे, उन्होंने ये नहीं बताया। उन्होंने कहा कि इसका विरोध हुआ, कौन किसने विरोध किया और नहीं बताया। विरोध तो आप ही ने किया था, भाजपा। कुछ सालों बाद स्वर्गीय श्री पीवी नरसिम्हा राव जी के नेतृत्व में कांग्रेस सरकार ने इस कानून को सदन में पारित करके लागू किया। आज अपने भाषण में प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जब पंचायत की आंदोलित महिलाओं का जिक्र किया, तो ये समझ लीजिए कि इस कदम के चलते ही आज 40 लाख पंचायत प्रतिनिधियों में से 15 लाख महिलाएं हमारे लोकतंत्र में भागीदार हैं। 2010 में स्वर्गीय प्रधानमंत्री डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी और यूपीए की अध्यक्ष श्रीमती सोनिया गांधी जी के नेतृत्व में कांग्रेस पार्टी ने लोकसभा और विधानसभा में महिलाओं को आरक्षण देने का फिर से प्रयास किया। राज्यसभा में इसे पारित भी कराया, लेकिन लोकसभा में आम सहमति नहीं बन पाई। 2018 में आदरणीय श्री राहुल गांधी जी ने मोदी जी को एक पत्र लिखा और उस पत्र में उन्होंने कहा कि ये महिला का जो आरक्षण है ये 2019 तक लागू हो जाना चाहिए। मुझे लगता है कि यहाँ आकर प्रधानमंत्री जी राहुल जी का मजाक तो बना लेते हैं, लेकिन घर जाके उनकी बातों पर गौर करते हैं, क्योंकि हम आज उसी बात पर चर्चा कर रहे हैं। वैसे आज प्रधानमंत्री जी की बातों से ये लगा कि भाजपा ही महिला आरक्षण के चैंपियन, प्रस्तावक और सबसे बड़े समर्थक रहे हैं। इनके पूरे भाषण में यही बात थी, जबकि ये कह रहे थे कि इन्हें इसका श्रेय नहीं चाहिए। कोई भी महिला आपको बता देगी कि बार बार बहकाने वाले पुरुषों को महिलाएं झट से पहचान लेती हैं। थोड़ी सावधानी बरत लीजिए, पकड़े जाएंगे। आखिर जब 2023 में राहुल जी के पत्र को पढ़ने के कुछ सालों बाद, हाँ, उसके बाद पढ़ लिया। आखिर जब 2023 में आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की सरकार ने यह अधिनियम सर्वसहमति से पारित किया, तब भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस ने अपनी विचारधारा के अनुकूल इसका पूरा समर्थन किया। आज भी इसमें कोई शक नहीं होना चाहिए कि भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस महिला आरक्षण के पक्ष में डट कर खड़ी है और खड़ी रहेगी। लेकिन अध्यक्ष महोदय, सच्चाई ये है कि आज की चर्चा दरअसल महिला आरक्षण पर है ही नहीं। जो विधेयक के सरकार ने पेश किया है, उसका प्रारूप हमने पढ़ा, उससे पूरी चर्चा ही बदल गई है। उनकी सरकार के इस विधेयक का सार सुनिए। सबसे पहले इसमें लिखा है कि संसद में महिला आरक्षण 2029 तक लागू होना चाहिए। अब सहमत है। फिर कहा गया है कि इसे लागू करने के लिए लोकसभा सदस्यों की संख्या 50% बढ़ानी पड़ेगी। मतलब कि सीटों की संख्या 543 से बढ़कर 850 तक बढ़ाई जाएगी। और इन सीटों को बढ़ाने के लिए एक परिसीमन आयोग बनाया जाएगा, जो 2011 की जनगणना को आधार बनाकर ये कार्य करेगा। ऊपर से इसमें कोई आपत्तिजनक बात नहीं लगती, मगर इसे गहराई से समझा जाए तो इसका असली मकसद उभरता है। वह राजनीति की बू जिसका जिक्र प्रधानमंत्री महोदय ने किया, वह राजनीति की बू इसमें पूरी तरह से घुली हुई है। दरअसल इसी सरकार ने महिला आरक्षण का जो विधेयक सर्वसहमति से 2023 में पारित कराया था, उसमें दो चीजें थी जो इस विधेयक में नहीं है। उसमें लिखा था कि इसे लागू करने से पहले नई जनगणना और परसीमन कराई जाएगी। अब अचानक क्या हो गया? मन बदल गया? वही सरकार पुराने आंकड़ों के आधार पर क्यों आगे बढ़ना चाह रही है और इतनी जल्दबाजी क्यों? अध्यक्ष महोदय, ये हमारे देश की सच्चाई है कि प्रतिनिधित्व का सवाल जनसंख्या के सवाल से जुड़ा हुआ है। जब तक जातीय जनगणना नहीं होती, सभी वर्गों को उचित प्रतिनिधित्व नहीं मिल सकता। यह अनिवार्य है। ये सरकार 2011 की जनगणना पर आगे बढ़ना इसलिए चाहती है क्योंकि इस जनगणना में ओबीसी वर्ग की संख्या ही नहीं है। आज प्रधानमंत्री महोदय ने बड़े हल्के में बोल दिया कि इस वर्ग और उस वर्ग के बारे में हम बाद में देख लेंगे। कौन सा इस वर्ग, कौन सा उस वर्ग? ओबीसी वर्ग की बात कर रहे थे कि हम बाद में ही देख लेंगे इसके बारे में। ये हल्के में नहीं लेना चाहिए अध्यक्ष महोदय। एक बहुत बड़ी संख्या है, एक पूरे वर्ग का परिश्रम है, एक पूरे वर्ग का संघर्ष है। इसे टेक्निकल मुद्दा बता के उन्होंने अपना पल्ला झाड़ दिया। हम इनकी मांग कर रहे हैं, हम इनकी ज़रूरतों को आगे कर रहे हैं, हम कह रहे हैं कि इनको भी अपना हक मिलना चाहिए, और प्रधानमंत्री जी ने उसको एक टेक्निकल मुद्दा बता दिया। हमारे प्रधानमंत्री महोदय किस बात से घबरा रहे हैं? इसी बात से ना कि जब नई जनगणना होगी तो इस ओबीसी वर्ग के असली आंकड़े निकलेंगे और उसमें पता चलेगा कि ये वर्ग कितना मजबूत है, कितना बड़ा है, और उसके हक को कोई नकार नहीं पाएगा। 2011 की जनगणना को परसीमन का आधार बनाकर प्रधानमंत्री जी ओबीसी वर्ग की ये हक छीनना चाहते हैं। उनके साथ अध्यक्ष महोदय, कांग्रेस पार्टी कभी नहीं होने देगी। हमारा संविधान सबका है, ये देश एक एक देशवासी का है। किसी एक का हक छीनकर इसे नहीं चलाया जा सकता।
Join International Institute of Hotel Management. Call 983-10-50,000.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद, यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मम्मा, क्या स्वाद है? अरे मेरी राजा,
AU सेविंग्स अकाउंट में मिलते हैं अमेजिंग बेनिफिट्स, पेपरलेस बैंकिंग एंड हायर इंटरेस्ट, वो भी हर महीने।
मनी 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 एवरी मंथ।
सोच बदलो और बैंक भी। The Indian Air Force is giving its old MiG-29 fighter jets a powerful new weapon from Britain that turns them into modern fighters ready for today's battles. MiG-29s first came to India in the 1980s, have flown many missions along the tough borders with China and Pakistan. Now they are getting equipped with British ASRAAM missiles that make them as strong as NATO planes in close fights. The Ministry of Defense sent out a request for proposals to fit the Advanced Short-Range Air-to-Air Missile on the MiG-29 UPG version. This British missile from the company MBDA replaces the old Russian R-73 that pilots used for years. The R-73 could only reach targets 10 to 15 kilometers away, which forced pilots to fly too close to the enemy and take big risks. The ASRAAM changes all that. It can hit targets more than 25 kilometers away, almost double the old range. It flies at Mach 3 speed and uses a smart infrared seeker that ignores enemy flares and jamming better than before. The Indian Air Force flies more than 55 of these MiG-29 UPG jets in frontline squadrons. These planes guard the northern and western borders day and night. Earlier upgrades added new radars, engines, and digital cockpits, but the short-range missiles stayed old. Now, the ASRAAM brings fire-and-forget technology. Once the pilot locks on and fires, the missile finds the target on its own, even if the jet turns away to dodge enemy fire. It also works with helmet-mounted displays, so the pilot can just look at the enemy plane through the visor and the missile follows the eyes. This high off-bore sight ability lets the jet attack from strange angles without turning the whole plane first. This upgrade matters a lot because the region stays tense. Pakistan flies JF-17 jets with modern PL-10 missiles that reach farther and lock on quicker. China uses even better systems on its J-20 stealth fighters and other planes. In a real dogfight, the old MiG-29 with R-73 could lose the first shot. With ASRAAM, the Indian pilots get longer reach, faster lock, and higher chance to survive. The missile also works well against low-flying drones that are hard to see on radar. Many experts see drone swarms as the new big threat in air wars, and this upgrade gives the MiG-29 a strong answer. The ASR
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
आलू चाट या फ्रूट चाट,
स्वाद बढ़ाए चमकी चाट।
क्या बात है? स्वादिष्ट पकोड़े और फरसान, अरे चमकी चाट है इसकी जान।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
आर प्योर शाही पनीर मसाला, डिलीशियस, हेल्दी एवरी डे.
The Indian Air Force is giving its old MiG-29 fighter jets a powerful new weapon from Britain that turns them into modern fighters ready for today's battles. MiG-29s first came to India in the 1980s, have flown many missions along the tough borders with China and Pakistan. Now they are getting equipped with British ASRAAM missiles that make them as strong as NATO planes in close fights. The Ministry of Defense sent out a request for proposals to fit the advanced short-range air-to-air missile on the MiG-29 UPG version. This British missile from the company MBDA replaces the old Russian R-73 that pilots used for years. The R-73 could only reach targets 10 to 15 kilometers away, which forced pilots to fly too close to the enemy and take big risks. The ASRAAM changes all that. It can hit targets more than 25 kilometers away, almost double the old range. It flies at Mach 3 speed and uses a smart infrared seeker that ignores enemy flares and jamming better than before. The Indian Air Force flies more than 55 of these MiG-29 UPG jets in frontline squadrons. These planes guard the northern and western borders day and night. Earlier upgrades added new radars, engines, and digital cockpits, but the short-range missiles stayed old. Now the ASRAAM brings fire-and-forget technology. Once the pilot locks on and fires, the missile finds the target on its own, even if the jet turns away to dodge enemy fire. It also works with helmet-mounted displays, so the pilot can just look at the enemy plane through the visor and the missile follows the eyes. This high off-bore sight ability lets the jet attack from strange angles without turning the whole plane first. This upgrade matters a lot because the regions
प्यास बुझाए ठंडक लाए सबको भाए जीरा से MTH का जल जीरा जीरा से
जीरा से असली रिफ्रेशिंग, असली स्वाद, असली मजा।
MTH
रानी, इस घर में कुछ है जो टूटता नहीं।
ये पिलर कभी नहीं टूटेगा। रुंगटा स्टील TMT से बना,
रूंगटा नहीं तो घर स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं। रूंगटा स्टील TMT बार एकदम सॉलिड।
आर प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो मिलाओ और खाओ
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला।
The Indian Air Force is giving its old MiG-29 fighter jets a powerful new weapon from Britain that turns them into modern fighters ready for today's battles. MiG-29s first came to India in the 1980s, have flown many missions along the tough borders with China and Pakistan. Now they are getting equipped with British ASRAAM missiles that make them as strong as NATO planes in close fights. The Ministry of Defense sent out a request for proposals to fit the advanced short-range air-to-air missile on the MiG-29 UPG version.
प्रधानमंत्री महोदय जी को ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि अगर वे इस ऐतिहासिक कदम को ईमानदारी से उठा रहे होते तो पूरा संसद इनके साथ एकजुट होकर इसे पारित करता। लेकिन देश की महिलाओं के नाम पर इस देश के बुनियादी ढांचे, इसकी अखंडता के साथ खिलवाड़ करने की कोशिश ने इस विधेयक का मकसद ही बदल डाला है। हमारी संसद को कमज़ोर करके अपनी सत्ता को कायम रखने की एक खोखली कोशिश साबित हुई है। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री महोदय जी, इस देश की महिलाओं का वाकई आप सम्मान करते तो उनका राजनीतिक इस्तेमाल न करते। ये आपकी हस्ती, आपके पद, उसकी गरिमा और आपके दायित्व के प्रतिकूल है। आपने ही कहा था कि भारत की हर नारी का ये हक है, उसका अधिकार है, किसी की मेहरबानी नहीं। आज नहीं तो कल उसे ये हक मिलेगा और इस हक को वे पूरी जिम्मेदारी से देश की अखंडता और एकता को बचाने के लिए इस्तेमाल करेंगे। हम आपके इन तीनों विधेयकों का सख्त विरोध करते हैं। लेकिन अभी भी आप एक ऐसा निर्णय ले सकते हैं जो सर्वसहमति से इस सदन में पारित हो जाएगा और हमारे देश की हर नारी को अपनी असली शक्ति को धारण करने का मौका मिलेगा। मैं आपके द्वारा प्रधानमंत्री जी से अपील करती हूं कि मन बनाएं, साहस करें, सही निर्णय ले लें। हम सब उनके साथ खड़े रहेंगे। धन्यवाद।
माननीय गृह मंत्री जी, अपने 11 बजे तक के लिए अभी एक्सटेंशन का हाउस का सेंस लिया है, तो इतना मेहनत से देश का महिलाओं को सशक्तिकरण देने के लिए, उनको जगह देने के लिए बहस कर रहे हैं, तो खाना का भी व्यवस्था कर देता हूँ, सबका भोजन। माननीय गृह मंत्री जी,
सम्माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, पूरी चर्चा पर सरकार का जवाब तो कल मैं दूंगा, परंतु अब तक जो चर्चा हुई है उसमें कुछ चीजें ऐसी उभर कर आई है जिसको सुनकर मुझे लगता है कि आज रात के लिए भी देश की जनता में कोई भ्रांति नहीं रहनी चाहिए। तो वो चीजों की स्पष्टता करने के मर्यादित उद्देश्य से मैं यहां पर खड़ा हुआ हूं। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, एक सबसे बड़ा नैरेटिव खड़ा किया जा रहा है, भ्रांति फैलाई जा रही है कि ये जो 3 विधेयक है, संविधान संशोधन विधेयक और 2 कानून, डिलिमिटेशन का और संघ क्षेत्र के चुनाव के कानून में बदलाव, वो आने से दक्षिण की क्षमता लोकसभा में बहुत कम हो जाएगी और हमारे दक्षिण के राज्यों को बहुत बड़ा नुकसान होगा। मान्यवर, मैं बिल जो सदन के सामने है, अब सदन की प्रॉपर्टी है, इसका प्रैक्टिकल इंटरप्रिटेशन कर कुछ चीजों को मैं बताना चाहता हूं। कर्नाटक राज्य में 543 के सदन में अभी 28 सीटें हैं और सदन की 543 सीटों की संख्या के 5.15% कर्नाटक के सांसद यहां पर आते हैं। ये बिल पारित होने के बाद, संविधान संशोधन होने के बाद कर्नाटक की संख्या हो जाएगी 28 से बढ़कर 42 और प्रतिशत लोकसभा में 816 में हो जाएगा 5.14। तो जरा भी नुकसान कर्नाटक को नहीं होगा। दूसरा राज्य है आंध्र प्रदेश। इनकी अभी 25 सीटें हैं आंध्र प्रदेश की और अब की स्थिति में उसका प्रतिशत प्रतिनिधित्व 4.60 है, 4.60। अब इसमें भी 50% लगभग वृद्धि होगी तो सीटें हो जाएगी 38 और 4.60 की जगह 4.65% उनकी शक्ति हो जाएगी। तेलंगाना में 17 सीटें हैं अभी और उनकी शक्ति 543 के सदन में प्रतिशत 3.13 है। अब उसमें 50% की वृद्धि होगी और सीटें हो जाएगी 26 और 3.13 की जगह 3.18% उनकी क्षमता होगी। तमिलनाडु, इतने सारे लोग काले कपड़े पहनकर आए हैं। मैं तमिलनाडु की जनता को भी आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि आपकी शक्ति कम नहीं होगी, बढ़ रही है। मान्यवर, अभी 39 सांसद तमिलनाडु राज्य से चुनकर यहां आते हैं और 543 के सदन में उसके प्रतिशत है 7.18% और अब 50% वृद्धि के बाद सांसद लगभग हो जाएंगे 59 और इनकी नए सदन में 816 के सदन में प्रतिशत में संख्या हो जाएगी 7.23। मैं फिर से एक बार रिपीट करना चाहता हूं, अभी तमिलनाडु की सदन में प्रतिशत स्ट्रेंथ 7.18% है, वो बढ़कर हो जाएगी 7.23। तो तमिलनाडु को भी कोई नुकसान नहीं है। केरला में 20 सांसद हैं, 3.68% इनका स्ट्रेंथ है, 20 की जगह 30 सांसद होंगे और 3.68 की जगह होगा 3.67। अब कुल मिलाकर दक्षिण का जो पूरा नैरेटिव बनाया जाता है उसको अगर हम सोचते हैं तो अभी 543 सीटों में जो आपके द्वारा बनाया गया है उसमें 129 सांसद इस सदन में बैठते हैं। मान्यवर, लगभग 23.76% दक्षिण के सांसदों का यहां शक्ति है। अब 50% वृद्धि होने के बाद 129 की जगह 195 सांसद बैठेंगे और उनकी शक्ति 23.97% मतलब 24% होगी। तो शक्ति बढ़ नहीं रही है, कम नहीं हो रही है, बढ़ रही है। तो कृपया कोई भी एक मिनट मेरा समाप्त तो होने दीजिए, समाप्त तो होने दीजिए। अरे पर समाप्त तो होने दीजिए। अरे पर बीच में कैसे करेंगे आप? मैं अभी बैठ जाइए, उसका भी जवाब देता हूं। आपको जवाब चाहिए ना, देता हूं। मान्यवर, कृपया ये बिल के जो इंटरप्रिटेशन है इसको अधिकृत रूप से बिल को पायलट करने वाले मंत्री के रूप में मैं इस सदन के सामने रख रहा हूं। मैं मेरी जिम्मेदारी समझ रहा हूं। जो भ्रांति फैला रहे वो शायद न समझते हैं, तो उसके लिए मेरा कोई टिप्पणी नहीं है। मान्यवर वेणुगोपाल जी कह रहे हैं कि किसने कहा? मैं अमित शाह भारत का गृह मंत्री कह रहा हूं, जो इस बिल को पायलट किया। दूसरी बात, सुनिए ना, बिल में कहां है और कहां से ड्रॉ कर मैं आंकड़े निकालता हूं। मैं कल उनको जब डिटेल जवाब दूंगा तब बता दूंगा, मगर वो सुनने के लिए बैठे वॉकआउट न कर जाए। बाकी मैं डिटेल केजी के बच्चे को समझ में आए इतनी सरलता से इनको मैं समझा दूंगा। मान्यवर, उनको धैर्य से सुनना चाहिए। मान्यवर, इन्होंने कहा कि जाति जनगणना नहीं कराना चाहती है सरकार। इसको भी मुझे स्पष्ट कर देना चाहिए, सरकार की कैबिनेट ने नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में जाति जनगणना करने का निर्णय कर लिया है। अगली जनगणना जाति जनगणना होने वाली है। एक भ्रांति फैलाई जा रही है कि अभी जो प्रश्न पूछे जा रहे हैं उसमें जाति का जिक्र नहीं है। मान्यवर, जनगणना जिनका डिटेल अभ्यास है उनको मालूम होगा, जनगणना 2 हिस्सों में होती है। पहले सभी मकानों को इंगित किया जाता है और उसके बाद में जो बिल्डिंग्स होते हैं इसके अंदर रहने वाले बंदों को इंगित किया जाता है। तो बिल्डिंग की अभी तक कोई जाति की व्यवस्था हुई नहीं है, होगी तब इसको भी गिन लेंगे भी। अभी तक बिल्डिंग की कोई जाति व्यवस्था नहीं है। मान्यवर, जब व्यक्तियों की जाति गिनी जाएगी तब जाति जनगणना का सवाल आएगा। ये भी मैं आज पूरी तरह से स्पष्ट कर देना चाहता हूं। मान्यवर, उन्होंने कहा कि 850 का आंकड़ा कहां से आया, ये मैं समझाता हूं। 850 का जो आंकड़ा है मान्यवर, वो इस तरह से बना है कि काल्पनिक रूप से सोच ले कि 100 सीटें हैं, अगर 33% माताओं को, मातृशक्ति को आरक्षण देना है तो उसमें 50% बढ़ाते हैं तो सीटें होती है 150, और 150 जब होती है इसका 33% करते हैं तो 100 सीटें ऑटोमेटिकली हो जाती हैं। जो 543 सदस्य बैठे हैं इसमें 50% वृद्धि होगी। इसका 33% जब माताओं के लिए रिजर्व हो जाएगा तब 543 की 43 ओपन सीटें होगी जहां पर भी महिलाएं लड़ सकती। तो ये 50% इस तरह से आया है। और 850 है वो राउंड ऑफ फिगर है, 816 एग्जैक्ट संख्या होगी। ये फिर से पूछेंगे कि ऐसा क्यों किया है, तो अभी भी राउंड ऑफ फिगर जो है ये 543 नहीं है, 543 से ज्यादा ही है। अब उन्होंने कहा कि वृद्धि कैसे करोगे? आप 550 इतना तो समझ जाएंगे भाई। मैं केजी कहा तो तुम 7 अर्थ में केजी की तरह करने लगे। मान्यवर, इन्होंने कहा कि ये बिल में लिखा नहीं है। सांसद ज्योतिमणि और दक्षिण के कई सारे सांसदों ने कहा, मेरा कल समय ले ले, मैं पढ़वा दूंगा। वैसे समय लेने की जरूरत भी नहीं है, कल मैं सदन के सामने ये डिटेल पूरा देश समझ पाए इस तरह से समझा दूंगा। मान्यवर, डीलिमिटेशन कमीशन का जिक्र है कि डीलिमिटेशन कमीशन में आप आपके लोग बिठा दोगे, ये करोगे वो करोगे। तो मैं माननीय सदस्य प्रियंका जी को कहना चाहता हूं, हमने डीलिमिटेशन कमीशन एक्ट के अंदर कोई बदलाव नहीं किया है। फुल स्टॉप कोमा में आपका डीलिमिटेशन कमीशन एक्ट को हमने रिपीट किया है। अगर आपने उस वक्त मैनिपुलेशन किया है तो मैं इतना कह सकता हूं, आप कह रही हो कि इससे मैनिपुलेशन होगा, तो आपने अगर उस वक्त ये एक्ट का उपयोग कर कर मैनिपुलेशन किया होगा तो मैं इतना कर सकता हूं कि हम नहीं करेंगे और मैं कुछ नहीं कह सकता। मान्यवर, एक वाक्य आया कि तमिलनाडु बंगाल में चुनाव हो रहे हैं और ये नया एक्ट आ गया। मान्यवर, बैठो बैठो मान्यवर, मैं स्पष्टता से कह देता हूं कि ये डिलिमिटेशन कमीशन की जो रिपोर्ट तभी लागू होगी जब पार्लियामेंट इसको स्वीकार करके करेगी और राष्ट्रपति महोदय इस पर अपना मंजूरी का मोहर लगाएंगी। तो ये 2029 के पहले होने का सवाल नहीं है। 29 तक भी जो चुनाव होंगे वो सारे पुरानी सीटों पर ही होंगे, पुरानी व्यवस्था में होंगे। तो अखिलेश जी को भी डरने की जरूरत नहीं है। यहाँ 27 की बात करें, यहाँ हालांकि वो जीतेंगे नहीं, वो अलग बात है, मगर डरने की जरूरत नहीं है। यहाँ पर कहा गया कि सत्ता बनाए रखने की लालसा में ला गया है। मान्यवर, ऐसा जो लोग कहते हैं कि कुछ नेता 130 करोड़ की आबादी के जनमत को मैनिपुलेट कर सकते हैं, वो हमारी शक्तियों के आकलन बहुत ज्यादा कर रहे हैं। हम तो उस बात में मानने वाले हैं, लोकतंत्र में सत्ता नागरिक के वोट से और नागरिक के दिमाग से ही तय होती है। राजनेता, राजनीतिक पार्टियां नहीं कर सकती। 130 करोड़ का जनमत कौन मैनिपुलेट कर सकता है ऐसा? और अगर कर पाते तो हम तो जीतते ही नहीं। आप सत्ता में बैठे थे, हम कैसे जीतते? मान्यवर, इमरजेंसी डालने के बाद भी जनमत मैनिपुलेट नहीं होता है। इस देश का इतिहास है। और जहां तक लोकतंत्र को खत्म करने की बात करी है, मैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी के कार्यकर्ता के नाते, इस सदन में एक सांसद के नाते कहता हूं, किसी की भी ताकत नहीं है इस देश से लोकतंत्र को खत्म करने की। जिन्होंने प्रयास किए हैं इमरजेंसी के वक्त, जनता ने उनको खत्म कर दिया था। लोकतंत्र को कुछ नहीं हुआ। और मान्यवर, लोकतंत्र इस तरह से खत्म नहीं है।
मलविंदर सिंह अपना आपका भाषण बाकी है, जो उसमें बोल देना। मलविंदर सिंह कंग।
On the mic.
माइक ऑन कर, माइक ऑन। ਮਲਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਕੰਗ।
स्पीकर साहब, सर ਤੁਹਾਡਾ बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
ये तो मैं तय करूंगा ना, ये आप थोड़ी तय करोगे।
स्पीकर साहब,
हाँ
स्पीकर साहब,
आपका नंबर भी आया नहीं, बोल लेना।
ਤੁਹਾਡਾ बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਨਸਟੀਟਿਊਸ਼ਨਲ ਅਮੈਂਡਮੈਂਟ ਬਿੱਲ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਰੱਖਣ ਦਾ ਮੌਕਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ। ਸਰ, ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਵੂਮਨ ਰਿਜ਼ਰਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਬੜਾ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੂਮਨ ਰਿਜ਼ਰਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਬਿੱਲ ਦੇ ਹੱਕ 'ਚ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ, ਸਾਡੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਅਰਵਿੰਦ ਕੇਜਰੀਵਾਲ ਜੀ, ਭਗਵੰਤ ਮਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਅਸੀਂ ਬੜਾ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਵੂਮਨ ਰਿਜ਼ਰਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਬਿੱਲ ਦੇ ਹੱਕ 'ਚ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਬਿੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਜਲਦੀ ਤੋਂ ਜਲਦੀ ਇਸ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ, ਜਿਹੜਾ 2023 'ਚ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਬਣ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਹੈ। ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਔਰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਪਾਵਰਮੈਂਟ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਦੇਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦਿਖਾਇਆ। ਜਦੋਂ ਇਸ ਦੇਸ਼ 'ਚ ਅਤਿਆਚਾਰ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ, ਉਦੋਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ, ਸੋ ਕੋ ਮੰਦਾ ਆਖੀਏ ਜਿਸ ਜਨਮੇ ਰਾਜਾਨ। ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮਾਂ ਰਾਜਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਨਮ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦਾ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਕਿਤਨਾ ਘੱਟ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਤੀ ਪ੍ਰਥਾ ਦਾ ਬੋਲਬਾਲਾ ਸੀ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ 'ਚ, ਉਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ, ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਦੇਵ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਉਠਾਈ, ਸਤਾ ਪ੍ਰਥਾ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਖਿਲਾਫਤ ਕੀਤੀ। ਔਰ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਰਮੌਰ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਸ਼੍ਰੋਮਣੀ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਕ ਕਮੇਟੀ, ਇਹਨੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ 'ਚ ਔਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਵੋਟ ਦਾ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਉਦੋਂ ਐਸਜੀਪੀਸੀ ਨੇ 1920 'ਚ ਵੋਟ ਦਾ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਔਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਔਰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰਿਜ਼ਰਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਿੱਲ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਦਾ ਰੂਪ ਅਖਤਿਆਰ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ 2023 'ਚ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜਲਦੀ ਤੋਂ ਜਲਦੀ ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਕਰੇ, ਭਾਰਤ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਕਰੇ। ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਡੀਲਿਮਿਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਇਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਸਖਤ ਵਿਰੋਧ ਹੈ। ਸਪੀਕਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਸ਼ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਲੜੀ ਗਈ, ਉਦੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ 2% ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਰਾਜਨੀਤਿਕ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦਗੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਘੱਟ ਹੋਣ ਕਰਕੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ, ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਰਾਜਧਾਨੀ।
1 minute please.
ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਡਿਲਿਮਿਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਅਮੈਂਡਮੈਂਟ ਐਕਟ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਮੈਡਮ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਵਿਰੋਧ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਔਰ ਬੜਾ ਬੁਨਿਆਦੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਆ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਵਰਗੇ, ਦੇਖੋ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਛੋਟਾ ਸੂਬਾ ਹੈ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਰਾਜਨੀਤਿਕ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦਗੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਸ ਹਾਊਸ 'ਚ ਘੱਟ ਹੋਣ ਕਰਕੇ, ਕਮੀ ਹੋਣ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਰਾਜਧਾਨੀ ਖੋਲੀ, ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਖੋਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੁਣ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਭਾਖੜਾ ਡੈਮ ਹੈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦਗੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਅਫਸਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਉੱਥੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦਗੀ ਖਤਮ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਮੇਰਾ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਵਿਰੋਧ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡੀਲਿਮਿਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਬਿੱਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਈ ਹੈ ਸਰਕਾਰ, ਇਹਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਛੋਟੇ ਸੂਬਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਵਰਗੇ ਸੂਬਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਾਜ
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
सैंडविच, लस्सी और छाछ।
हर घूंट में चमकी चाट। ड्राई फ्रूट और दही बड़े। चमकी चाट से स्वाद बढ़े।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद, यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मामा, क्या स्वाद है। अरे मेरी राजा,
The Indian Air Force is giving its old MiG-29 fighter jets a powerful new weapon from Britain that turns them into modern fighters ready for today's battles. MiG-29s first came to India in the 1980s, have flown many missions along the tough borders with China and Pakistan. Now they are getting equipped with British ASRAAM missiles that make them as strong as NATO planes in close fights. The Ministry of Defense sent out a request for proposals to fit the advanced short-range air-to-air missile on the MiG-29 UPG version. This British missile from the company MBDA replaces the old Russian R-73 that pilots used for years. The R-73 could only reach targets 10 to 15 kilometers away, which forced pilots to fly too close to the enemy and take big risks. The ASRAAM changes all that. It can hit targets more than 25 kilometers away, almost double the old range. It flies at Mach 3 speed and uses a smart infrared seeker that ignores enemy flares and jamming better than before. The Indian Air Force flies more than 55 of these MiG-29 UPG jets in frontline squadrons. These planes guard the northern and western borders day and night. Earlier upgrades added new radars, engines, and digital cockpits, but the short-range missiles stayed old. Now the ASRAAM brings fire-and-forget technology. Once the pilot locks on and fires, the missile finds the target on its own, even if the jet turns away to dodge enemy fire. It also works with helmet-mounted displays, so the pilot can just look at the enemy plane through the visor and the missile follows the eyes. This high off-bore sight ability lets the jet attack from strange angles without turning the whole plane first. This upgrade matters a lot because the region stays tense. Pakistan flies JF-17 jets with modern PL-10 missiles that reach farther and lock on quicker. China uses even better systems on its J-20 stealth fighters and other planes.
Well, a big development now taking place. A Supreme Court directive that has basically come in right now. This is with regards to the SR. The Supreme Court has basically issued clear instructions regarding voter eligibility. The court has directed that individuals who are identified as valid voters by the appellate tribunal between 21st of April and 27th of April would be granted full voting rights. In fact, anyone who has cleared within this time frame will be officially recognized and allowed to exercise their franchise. Now, what does this essentially mean in terms of numbers? I'll just quickly take you through what the court has said. Point number one, the court has basically directed that individuals who are identified as valid voters, and that too by the appellate tribunal, between 21st of April and 27th of April, they will be granted full voting rights, which essentially means that the verification process that would be carried out during this specific window will be quite important, because those who have been cleared within this time frame will be officially recognized and they would be allowed to exercise their franchise. Now, all are basically now quite a number of cases, over 34,000 cases that you're really looking at, which are basically pending with the tribunal. Now, there's all under adjudication in the court. Now, even if 1% of the people basically get their clearance, that would be quite a significant number that you're looking at. 19 tribunal are currently headed by a judge who's working across Bengal. So that's within the time frame that you're looking at is between 21st of April and 27th of April. That's the big news now coming in from the Supreme Court as far as the SIR case is concerned. Direct impact as far as the West Bengal polls are concerned. The other big story that we're tracking, US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says they're locked and loaded watching Iran's energy industry. US reportedly preparing for an economic war against Iran.
In the global employability rankings by Times Higher Education UK, only the following 6 institutions from India are ranked amongst the top 230 in the world for having the most employable graduates. IIT Delhi, IISc Bangalore, IIT Bombay, IIM Ahmedabad, IIT Kharagpur and Amity University.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद, यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मम्मा, क्या स्वाद है? अरे मेरी राजा,
रानी, इस घर में कुछ है जो टूटता नहीं।
ये पिलर कभी नहीं टूटेगा। रुंगटा स्टील TMT से बना।
रुंगटा नहीं तो घर स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं। रुंगटा स्टील TMT बार एकदम सॉलिड।
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
आलू चाट या फ्रूट चाट।
स्वाद बनाए चमकी चाट।
क्या बात है? स्वादिष्ट पकोड़े और फरसान, अरे चमकी चाट है इसकी जान।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
आर प्योर शाही पनीर मसाला, डिलीशियस, हेल्दी एवरी डे।
The Indian Air Force is giving its old MiG-29 fighter jets a powerful new weapon from Britain that turns them into modern fighters ready for today's battles. MiG-29s first came to India in the 1980s, have flown many missions along the tough borders with China and Pakistan. Now they are getting equipped with British ASRAAM missiles that make them as strong as NATO planes in close fights. The Ministry of Defense sent out a request for proposals to fit the Advanced Short-Range Air-to-Air Missile on the MiG-29 UPG version. This British missile from the company MBDA replaces the old Russian R-73 that pilots used for years. The R-73 could only reach targets 10 to 15 kilometers away, which forced pilots to fly too close to the enemy and take big risks. The ASRAAM changes all that. It can hit targets more than 25 kilometers away, almost double the old range. It flies at Mach 3 speed and uses a smart infrared seeker that ignores enemy flares and jamming better than before. The Indian Air Force flies more than 55 of these MiG-29 UPG jets in frontline squadrons. These planes guard the northern and western borders day and night. Earlier upgrades added new radars, engines, and digital cockpits, but the short-range missiles stayed old. Now the ASRAAM.
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
A story we've been tracking very closely. The communal sexual abuse on the TCS campus. More details accessed by Republic TV show that the religious conversion, sexual assault, perhaps was just the beginning. Were victims at TCS about to be shipped out to Malaysia? Details coming up on this is exclusive.
On Republic Global today, a high-stakes diplomatic twist. A Pakistan delegation lands in Tehran carrying a message directly from the United States. Big questions, high stakes, global impact. Watch this at 6:30 p.m. on Our Global. In the latest edition of Our Global, we're going to be bringing you stories. And these are stories from across the globe. And starting point from the war zone, US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has said they are watching Iran and reloading with more power. Lined up next, we're going to tell you the seemingly stalled Israel and Lebanon ceasefire, which faces much challenges and does not see the horizon yet. We next bring you updates from another war front, the Russian-Ukraine war front. And viewers, we still conclude this bulletin with a special explainer for you on the first Russian LPG cargo to India after US sanctions. Now let's take a look at our top headlines that we're covering at this hour. We're going to give you more details. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who has said, locked and loaded, watching Iran's energy industry, US reportedly preparing for an economic war against Iran. Israel-Lebanon ceasefire not near horizon. Israeli strikes continue in Lebanon. Australia increases defense spending. Defense minister says increasing military budget in the wake of West Asia war. At least 8 are killed, several are injured in Odisha as Russia cries out overnight strikes across Ukraine. New Delhi is going to be hosting BRICS summit in September. Russian President Vladimir Putin to visit India. show with the biggest global story. While reports are up that the United States and Iran will soon be holding the second round of talks, a new aspect has now emerged to this face-off. Now, the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has warned Iran, said they are keeping a close watch on Iran's economy. There are other reports also suggesting that the United States is now preparing for an economic war against Iran. Now, the US-Iran ceasefire deadline is next Tuesday. US has not dropped any hint for ceasefire extension. This much remains to be seen how this face-off proceeds. Watch this detailed report for more.
After the failed mediation attempt in Pakistan, the ceasefire in West Asia remains volatile. However, White House has confirmed that Washington has not formally requested an extension of the current ceasefire with Iran, even as negotiations remain ongoing.
I saw some reporting, again, bad reporting this morning, that we had formally requested an extension of the ceasefire. That is not true at this moment. We've remained very much engaged in these negotiations, in these talks. You heard from the Vice President directly and the President this week that these conversations are productive and ongoing, and that's where we are right now. I've also seen some reporting about the potentiality for in-person discussions again. Those discussions are being had, but nothing is official until you hear it from us here at the White House. But we feel good about the prospects of a deal. The President mentioned that in his interview yesterday, and it's obviously in the best interest of Iran to meet the President's demands. I think he's made his red lines in these negotiations very clear.
The fragile ceasefire announced earlier this month is set to expire soon, raising concerns that talks could collapse without a breakthrough. White House, however, also hinted that discussions are still productive, with potential in-person talks likely to resume in Islamabad.
Very likely be in the same place as they were last time, yes. With the same, I would just want to make one point that's important to the President. The Pakistanis have been incredible mediators throughout this process, and we really appreciate their friendship and their efforts to bring this deal to a close. So they are the only mediator in this negotiation. While there have been many countries around the world who want to offer their help, the President feels it's important to continue to streamline this communication through the Pakistanis, and so that's what continues to take place.
But behind the scenes, frustration is growing. This after a recent round of talks in Islamabad failed to produce concrete results, particularly on nuclear limits and regional security demands. At the heart of this dispute is the collapse of the 2015 nuclear deal, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which once limited Iran's nuclear program. The US later withdrew from this agreement, triggering a cycle of sanctions and escalation. Since then, Washington has imposed sanctions which penalize foreign countries and firms that engage with Iran's economy, especially its oil sector. Now, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says that US is preparing to intensify pressure through what he calls Operation Economic Fury, warning of sweeping new financial penalties on Iran.
Yesterday, we announced Operation Economic Fury, and we, for over a year, we have had maximum pressure on the Iranians, both on blocking payments into the Iranian state and going after the accounts of the IRGC. One of the what may prove to be fatal mistakes that the Iranians made was bombing their GCC neighbors, and who are now willing to be much more transparent in terms of the funds or do a deeper dive in investigating the funds that are held within their banking systems.
The US is threatening to expand secondary sanctions globally, targeting countries and banks that continue to buy Iranian oil or hold Iranian funds, as a move that officials describe as the financial equivalent of military action. With diplomacy stalling and economic pressure mounting, only coming days could determine whether talks will resume or whether tensions between Washington and Tehran will escalate further.
After the first round of talks in Islamabad between US and Iran failed, Pakistan is attempting to broker a second round of negotiations. It's a delegation of top Pakistani officials touching down in Tehran. They met Iranian Foreign Minister Arakchi before leaving for the United States. The 2-week pause in the war is still in place, while both sides are preparing to make way for a path to peace. The question we're asking is, will the second round of talks be more successful than the last?
12th April 2026. Tight-lipped US Vice President left Islamabad for America after 21 hours of back-and-forth failed mediation attempts.
We're looking forward to the negotiation. I think it's going to be positive. We'll, of course, see. As the President of the United States said, if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand. If they're going to try to play us, then they're going to find that the negotiating team is not that receptive. So we're going to try to have a positive negotiation. The President has gave us some pretty clear guidelines, and we're going to see. So I hope you guys have a safe flight. We'll certainly take some questions later on, but for now, let's get on the plane and hit the road.
And now, a Pakistani delegation led by their Army Chief Asim Munir arrived in Tehran to deliver Washington's message. Asim Munir held high-stakes discussions with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Arakchi, where they reportedly discussed the roadmap for a potential breakthrough. Though there are reports that a second round of talks is soon going to be held in Islamabad, the primary sticking point remains the preconditions proposed by the United States. US has demanded a moratorium on uranium enrichment, a condition Tehran has so far flatly rejected. Despite the friction, the 14-day pause on the war continues to hold, providing a fragile window for the diplomacy led by Pakistan. This even as the United States continues its naval blockade of Iranian ports, while Tehran keeps a tight grip on the Strait of Hormuz, threatening a global energy crisis if a permanent deal isn't struck soon. US President Donald Trump has signaled a willingness to extend the peace window, but only if the strait is open, free and clear, shifting the burden of the next move onto the Iranian leadership. Pakistan, navigating its own energy and economic interests, is positioning itself as the only viable bridge, attempting to pull both sides back from the brink of total war. As the Pakistani delegation prepares to fly to Washington, the world watches if this round of talks can bridge the divide before the 2-week pause runs out next Tuesday.
And viewers, while a Pakistani delegation carries the US message to Tehran, it's the Iranian leaders that are now saying they will not accept a US proposal just like that, because Tehran wants to set the terms for the next negotiations. This even as efforts intensify to extend the fragile ceasefire before the April 2022 deadline. Tensions are rising over enrichment, blockade and also regional mediation. Watch the report on how Iran is reacting to US proposals.
A fresh deadlock in US-Iran tensions as Iran signals it will not accept US proposal without negotiation. Even as mediators push to extend the ceasefire, sharp differences remain over Iran's nuclear program, the US naval blockade and control over Hormuz.
اینکه یک طرف بخواد طرف آمریکایی بخواد به ما بسته‌ای رو پیشنهاد بده و انتظار داشته باشه که ایران بی کم و کاست اونها رو بپذیره، حتما هم خودشون میدونن شدنی نیست و هم این که اساساً با منطق مذاکره و گفتگو ناسازگار هست.
Iran has reiterated that while it is open to talks, it will not compromise on its core red lines, especially uranium enrichment.
راجع به مباحث مرتبط با سطح و نوع غنیسازی، خب ما همیشه گفتیم این چیز جدیدی نیست. ما گفتیم در مورد نوع غنیسازی، سطح غنیسازی این بحث ما.
Meanwhile, tensions are rising over the US naval blockade, with Iran warning it could derail the ceasefire entirely.
میتواند مقدمه نقض آتش بس باشه و قطعاً جمهوری اسلامی ایران، نیروهای مسلح ما با دقت تحولات رو اونجا رصد میکنن و هر جا که لازم باشه واکنش لازم رو نشون خواهند داد.
Iran has also warned against external interference, accusing the US and its allies of complicating the situation further.
من فکر میکنم هر تحرکی، هر مداخله‌ای در امور منطقه صرفاً به پیچیده تر شدن اوضاع می انجامه. خوشحالیم که این هوشمندی وجود داره.
Even as ceasefire violations are alleged, Iran says it remains committed to the agreement and is pursuing diplomatic channels.
این که طرف مقابل از همون ابتدا بخشی از این تفاهم رو نادیده گرفت و بدعهدی کرد، به این معنا نیست که جمهوری اسلامی ایران از عهدی که بسته به هیچ عنوان کوتاه اومده یا کوتاه بیاد.
Pakistan has now stepped in as a key mediator holding talks with both US and Iran.
هیئتی از پاکستان هستیم در ادامه گفتگوهایی که در اسلام آباد صورت گرفت، بحث‌هایی که طرف پاکستانی با آمریکا داشته، حرفای ما رو شنیده و قاعدتاً در جریان این سفر احتمالاً
With red lines firmly drawn and trust in short supply, whether talks succeed or collapse could determine the next phase of conflict in the region.
And viewers, while Iran and US ceasefire is already under tension, the Lebanon-Israel ceasefire as well does not seem anywhere near the horizon. While Israel-Lebanon talks might be held soon, Israel has not paused strikes in southern Lebanon. Iran had already drawn a red line linking its position directly with Hezbollah. The United States, on the other hand, has also sent mixed signals. They express openness to ending hostilities even as they step up pressure in the Strait of Hormuz. With both sides hardening their positions, global shipping routes now under strain, the region is appearing to be entering a very complex and volatile phase. Take a look at this report.
The temporary ceasefire in the West Asia war remains volatile, and a lasting peace in the region is not even on the horizon. Iran has made its position clear on Lebanon, stating that Hezbollah and Iran are allies, and also warning the United States against any escalation in Lebanon. Tehran has indicated that continued attacks on Lebanon by Israel could derail any meaningful negotiations with the United States. On the other hand, US President Donald Trump says he welcomes an end to hostilities. However, US officials have reportedly clarified that Washington and Israel are not aligned on any ceasefire framework involving Lebanon. Meanwhile, Iran has hardened its stance. Military advisor Mohsen Rizai has warned that Iran is fully prepared for a prolonged conflict, while also urging caution in any future economic negotiations with Washington. He also indicated that for the next round of negotiations with the United States, Iran will be setting the terms. In another significant development, the United States has stepped up pressure in the Strait of Hormuz. US forces stated that vessels entering or exiting Iranian ports are being blocked, while freedom of navigation continues for others in the Strait of Hormuz. Amid this, US President Donald Trump stated that Israel and Lebanon are seeking a breather and will be talking soon. While the White House Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that the next round of negotiations are likely to take place in Pakistan itself.
I would just want to make one point that's important to the president. The Pakistanis have been incredible mediators throughout this process, and we really appreciate their friendship and their efforts to bring this deal to a close. So they are the only mediator in this negotiation. While there have been many countries around the world who want to offer their help, the president feels it's important to continue to streamline this communication through the Pakistanis, and so that's what continues to take place.
With a fragile ceasefire in place, rising tensions in Hormuz, and both sides unwilling to back down, West Asia now stands at a critical crossroads where diplomacy and escalation are unfolding side by side.
We move now to another war front, the Russian-Ukrainian war, where Russian strikes last night killed more than 20 in Ukraine. A wave of overnight Russian strikes hit southern Ukraine, with Odessa among the hardest hit cities. Emergency crew worked through the night to rescue the survivors as residential buildings and also very critical infrastructure were damaged. The attacks are a part of the wider barrage targeting multiple Ukrainian cities as Kyiv continues to call for increased military support from its allies.
While a temporary ceasefire is in place between US and Iran, the war between Russia and Ukraine continues to rage. Russian overnight strikes have left at least 8 people dead in the southern Ukrainian city of Odessa. Emergency crews rush to damaged buildings to rescue the survivors.
Цієї ночі ворог масово атакував Одесу. Внаслідок влучань виникли пошкодження житлової, цивільної та портової інфраструктури. На місцях виникли пожежі, які вогнеборці оперативно ліквідували. Також вибуховою хвилею вибито скління в 3-5-поверхових гуртожитках. Зранку ворог поцілив по 9-поверхівці, де виникли значні руйнування квартир з подальшим загоранням, яке вогнеборці оперативно ліквідували. За попередньою інформацією відомо про 8 загиблих. Ще 16 осіб постраждало. На місці проводяться аварійно-рятувальні роботи.
Rescuers worked through the night in Odessa, carrying the injured to safety and assisting residents trapped inside the shattered buildings. Authorities say that multiple fires broke out but were quickly brought under control. Ukraine State Emergency Service says that the attack caused widespread destruction across residential and civilian infrastructure. Officials report that 8 people were killed and 16 injured, with rescue operations still ongoing. The strikes on Odessa were part of a broader wave of Russian attacks across Ukraine, as hundreds of drones and missiles targeted cities overnight. In a different region, at least 3 people were killed and dozens injured after strikes triggered fires across the city, damaging homes, vehicles, and public buildings. Ukraine's Air Force says that it intercepted the majority of incoming threats, shooting down hundreds of drones in one of the largest aerial assaults in recent weeks. As attacks intensify, Ukrainian President Zelensky is seeking increased military support from European allies, with new aid packages and drone deliveries pledged by partner nations to counter the ongoing strikes.